And I'm Keon.
This is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast with a Korean singing shark in an evening gown, because this week we watched The Curse of the Black Spot.
Written by Steve Thompson.
Directed by Jeremy Webb.
And aired on May 7th, 2011.
This pirate-themed story. Whoopee. Doctor Who does pirates. Anyway, before we start, last week I mentioned that this has a weird sort of prequel-esque connection to a First Doctor story. I don't want to explain that now.
/ sequel. I mean,
it's a tie-in.
It's a connection.
Yeah, it's like a, what's the word for it now? Like a mid-quill, I think is the word.
No, I mean, but even then it's like that. It's not.
It's like a sidestep. It's like a concurrent story.
It's like a retcon almost.
I don't know if it's a retcon.
It's not.
Okay, we should explain how it ties in first. But basically, in The Smugglers, you remember that First Doctor story with the First Doctor and Ben and Polly? It was the start of season 4.
It's a reconstruction, I think.
Yeah, and it was like
and the still is probably
third to last First Doctor story, I think.
I think it was the second to last. I think it was right before 10th Planet.
I think you're right. I think it was right before 10th Planet. In that story, they encounter these pirates, the Doctor and Ben and Polly encounter these pirates who are searching for Henry Avery and his lost treasure.
So he's not even in that. He's just mentioned, but he's in this.
Yeah.
And I read that Steve Thompson wasn't even aware of the smuggler, or like that Henry Avery was mentioned in The Smugglers. He just kind of wrote this.
No, yeah. The reason why he wrote this was because he wanted to do a pirate story. And Henry Avery seemed like an optimal choice because in real life, the real life pirate Henry Avery, by the way, he's an actual pirate, went missing after he stole the treasure that he stole before this story started from the prince in India who had like an official title that I don't remember right now. But in real life, the actual pirate Henry Avery disappeared with a large portion of that treasure, and no one knows what happened. So
right, and as with every unexplained thing that happened in history, Doctor Who just writes it off as aliens.
There was that time Atlantis was sunk by a crazy German scientist, though.
You mean Zoroff?
Yeah.
Never forget Zoroff.
I have all the power in the world. And yeah, so he was like, yeah, pirates, and that's how the story came to be. There wasn't actually a lot of rewriting done on the story, except for the fact that originally this story was in the, I believe it was 9th slot for this season. And then Stephen Moffat decided at the beginning of the season was like so laden with these really heavy stories, which is true. We're about to get 2 like really heavy, meaty stories in a row.
Next one looks good.
The next one's written by Neil Gaiman, fun fact. He decided that also because the episode that was originally in this slot was also really like dark, he decided to push The Doctor's Wife, which is next week, back one episode to where the other episode was originally in the 4th slot. Night Terrors was originally in the 4th slot, and then this was originally in the 9th slot, and then so he moved that to the 3 slot, and he moved Night Terrors from 4 to 9.
All right.
Yeah. So that move actually had to be accounted for in the mid-season finale because of something that's referenced in that episode. They added a reference in that episode to this episode, which you'll see when we get there. But so they added that after he decided the move, but the move was decided before they actually filmed.
Okay, well, I mean,
the episode.
The majority of this isn't related to anything at all, surprisingly.
No, but there is the eye patch lady does show up again.
There's like 2 things. There's like 2 moments. And that was surprising for me because based on what happened last week, I thought there was going to be more tie-in, but, I guess not.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, this is supposed to be a lighthearted story that's supposed to prime you for the fact that the next couple of weeks are going to be, like, really heavy and dark.
It's not that lighthearted, though. I mean, like...
No, it's really not. And apparently they took, like, specific care to make it so that this episode didn't seem like a pastiche of, like, pirate stories. So they, like, actually tried to make it, like, accurate, unlike Pirates of the Caribbean, although they did rename it Curse of the Black Spot.
Fire in the what do they call it? The gunpowder storage area. I forget what it's called. They name drop it in the episode.
Yeah, they do, but now I'm forgetting.
Started with an M.
But yeah, they named this to reference Curse of the Black Pearl, Curse of the Black Spot. Wow, what a twist. Originally, this episode was just titled Siren. when Steve Thompson wrote
Right.
it. It was titled Siren. Which, in my opinion, is a way cooler and more mysterious name. But Curse of the Black Spot works too.
You gotta get that
I guess.
Pirates of the Caribbean money. Did you notice the soundtrack in this kind of felt Pirates of the Caribbean-esque?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a pirate.
Swashbuckling.
Yeah, I guess that's a sort of pirate sound. I mean, you'd have to go back to like those old pirate sort of movies that maybe were based on classic pirate stories and from like pulp magazines and stuff in the early 20th century. And look at the soundtracks there to really get a feel on whether Pirates of the Caribbean. Who did this? Hans Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer and Klaus. I don't remember his last name, but it begins with a B.
Yeah. To really see if that's where they drew their inspiration from. And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, I feel like that was more of a Ennio Morricone in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly situation where he just did his own thing and defined the entire sound of the genre for the next decade.
I mean, maybe.
Next 20 decades.
Oh, the pirate genre didn't really take off as a genre after that movie. It was more just that one franchise.
That's true, actually, but alas. Henry Avery's played by Hugh Bonneville, who's actually one of England's, 10 actors.
Not one of their 10 most well-known, just one of their 10 actors.
The 10 most well-known. He's been in a lot of television and some movies. I think he's most well-known for being in Downton Abbey right now. So,
watched a lot of Downton Abbey in the background.
Did you?
Background, yeah.
Do you want me to find out who he was?
So no. I mean, I don't know any of the stories or anything.
Okay.
It was just something I sort of glanced up at, as my mom was watching it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I watch NCIS. I just put it on and use it as background noise while I'm working. Couldn't tell you what the hell happened for the past 10 seasons of the show I've watched. Quote, watched, unquote.
It's NCIS, so I'm sure it's not that interesting.
It's NCIS, so you can sum up every episode in, maybe, let's say 5 sentences.
Favorite part of every NCIS episode is when they, have video or, pictures of something, and they're like, let's just zoom in on this, and they, get really detailed, and they, change the camera angle and go into the guy's pocket, and they're like, there was lint in his pocket.
There's actually, I'm going to link it because I saw this a couple weeks ago and I thought it was funny, but Red Dwarf, Red Dwarf, the British
Yeah, I never watched it.
It's a science fiction show, but it's a comedy kind of sitcom satire thing. Anyway, they have a scene in that where they do something like that Zoom and Hans thing where they're in a store and they scan in this photo and they quote uncrop the photo and then they reflect across the street. They reflect back off a water droplet and then back off the... I'll link it in the description because it's actually pretty funny, but...
Yeah, speaking of space sitcoms, I'll also link this in the notes, is this is a total digression from this episode, but we've been joking about the sitcom-y endings to Blake 7, and I finally found an edit that does the outro sequence as a sitcom type thing.
Nice.
Yeah. So I didn't have to make it myself. I mean, not that I would have, but
thank goodness for that. Anyway, on to the actual plot of this episode. We meet some pirates, and the guy comes in with a tiny paper cut on his finger, and they're like, "You're a dead man.
You're a dead man now."
And he's like, "What?" And then this black spot appears on his hand, and then he's like, "No, shoot, no!" And
he goes outside, and you don't see what happens to him, but he's not there anymore. He disappears.
But then the doors to the brig, I guess.
Just to some underdeck area. There's technical terms for everything we're about to say, but we don't know any of them.
And it's the doctor, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And they're like, "Yeah, we should kill you because you're stowaways." Then we get the title sequence, and then they're like, "Okay, so you obviously stowed away."
I didn't notice that they added the BBC logo to the Doctor Who logo.
Yeah, I think they did that. The start of Stephen Moffat's run.
Really?
Might have been the start of the season. I don't know.
I just noticed it this episode, so yeah, there it is.
BBC got to get that
brand recognition. Even though they're the biggest broadcaster in the world.
I don't know if BBC has brand recognition either. I feel like that's just something they're trying to build.
I mean, I think it does.
I guess if you're in England.
No, but even worldwide, it's a well-known, a reputable.
Is it
news.
reputable?
Yeah, I would say for
news, yeah. But like I was talking about like the brand recognition for, I don't know,
TV shows.
TV shows.
Yeah, I would say so.
Fiction. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would say that. Yeah, they are. Well,
Every television station has made their fair share of bad shows, BBC included.
Yeah, no, I mean like maybe they're not reputable in terms of maybe not even news. Like who freaking knows? But maybe not reputable, but known.
Moving the goalposts. Anyway, Avery's like, yo, we should just kill them. And they're like, nah, let's just make them walk the plank. So they're going to make them walk the plank. I thought I read somewhere that like actual pirates didn't really make people walk the plank because it was like inefficient or something. But that might just be something I'm making up. I don't remember.
Yeah, I've seen like 4, maybe 5 pirate movies, and they did that in all of them. No, actually they didn't. I'm talking about the Pirates of the Caribbean
Pretty
franchise.
sure they did them in at least one of them, though. They did make Jack walk the plank.
It was in the first one for sure. I don't remember about the other ones.
Okay, see, I wasn't thinking of that one, so they did it at least twice. I was thinking of when they stranded him in the second one, I think. The third one.
Maybe it wasn't in the first. I don't know. I don't remember, actually.
Whatever. My point was, I thought I read that they didn't actually make people walk the plank. But like I said, that might just be something I'm making up.
I mean, who knows, really? Who knows what pirates were up to?
Pirates themselves. So Amy pulls out a sword, and they're all like, yo, that sword could kill us all. And she's like, yeah, that's why I'm wielding it. And they're like, no, you don't understand. That could literally kill us all.
Well, here's the thing. Amy sort of makes an escape, or she is able to get this sword, but she also puts on the full pirate costume. So, really wastes a lot of time there. Mm-hmm. They could all be dead by the time she gets back up because she decided to put on the entire pirate outfit.
Yeah. I mean, and then we see...
It's real lucky there.
The instant she pulls out the sword, Henry Avery just drops his gun, and I was like, wait a minute. The most logical thing to do right here is, you're going to make her walk the plank anyway. Just put a bullet through her head.
But where's the fun in that?
Well, it would prevent a lot of your crew members from being potentially killed by this sharp blade that she's waving around.
But where's the fun in that?
Living.
But where's the fun in that?
Ooh. To me IRL, for me IRL.
What does that mean?
So, yeah, Avery drops the gun, but then she accidentally cuts one of the crew members, and they're like, oh, shit, Amy, you just killed that man. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's just a tiny cut. And they're like, nah, dude, you just sentenced him to death.
They're like, no, just watch this, and the siren comes around.
And then she accidentally cuts Rory in the process, too, and the siren shows up, and they're like, shoot, dude, you're dead, man. I don't know why these pirates are talking like that in my interpretation of the story.
So we finally see how the siren kills its victims, supposedly.
By vaporizing them and turning them to ash.
So once you get the death mark, the black spot on your hand, you are enticed to walk towards the siren. The siren is singing. And as soon as you touch the siren, who is sort of this apparition type thing, you just get vaporized.
Yeah. So they're all holding Rory back. He's like, wow, she's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And Amy's like, what? And I'm like, Amy, you had it coming considering all the nonsense you've put Rory through in the Lost episode.
Yeah, I mean, there was some of that, but I appreciated how this episode didn't go too in-depth with the love triangle stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and it made it out to seem like when the siren was singing to you, you not lost your memory, so to speak, but lost kind of control.
Yeah.
So, because when they go into the brig, I guess, or the
interior
rum
area,
storage of the ship,
the partially flooded area,
with
leeches.
Well, leeches had a practical medical purpose back then, according to doctors of the era.
Pretty sure bloodletting is now looked at as like not something people should have done.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, I really don't know, but...
Well, I think most in the medical field would agree with that assessment. But anyway, as I was trying to say, when he kind of snaps out of it, he says, oh my God, I didn't, when she points out that he called the Siren beautiful. Anyway, there's a funny line here that I just wanted to bring up because the doctor's like, don't worry, the Siren can't get through 3 solid inches of timber, and then it just immediately pops up, and I was like, haha, yeah, as if timber would stop anything. They should have made their boats out of steel.
Yeah, dumbasses, what were they thinking?
Here's a fun fact about not pirate ships, but like ships of the era. But apparently, when captains would sail and discover new lands, I learned this while I was in Hawaii recently. They would plant,
quote unquote, discover, quote unquote, new
yeah,
lands.
quote unquote, discover new lands from the perspective of their rather limited worldview. When they would land there, they would plant pine trees. Because that way, if their ship was ever damaged and they made it back to that island or land that they discovered, they would have a tree that could be used for a replacement mast. Because pine trees grow long and tall and straight, which
they take a long time to grow, like
masts.
Years.
Yeah,
before they'd be able to cut them down. And
it took years for them to make those journeys. Like Drake went out on his journey to go sail around South America and didn't return for like 6-7 years. So.
I mean, at the same time, actually, I think a little earlier than this, the Chinese had already built their treasure fleet.
Yeah.
Which was like 10 times bigger, faster, and better than any of these ships.
Yeah.
But then they decided to go into isolation and ruin their chances at... I mean, look, if China zigged instead of zagged, we'd be speaking Chinese right now. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that, and if the Brits hadn't introduced them to opium, so... I'm not saying that that's entirely on the British, by the way. The British used opium to basically control China indirectly by controlling the opium trade.
Well, there's also this other conflict, which I think predates that, which is between the eunuchs and the explorers, I guess. Mm-hmm. But we don't need to go into that because it's way too detailed and I don't even know that much about it. Eunuchs, because eunuchs were often really powerful in ancient China, and I don't remember why. But they often had high positions of power.
Interesting. Wow, look at us doing Doctor Who's original purpose and educating viewers.
I mean, educate, all the things we've been, well, at least I've been saying are just kind of getting at stuff you can look up, but probably kind of off, so
Should we title this podcast Mostly Accurate?
The Mostly Accurate Doctor Who Episode Guide. Check out Mostly Made Up Doctor Who Episode Guide. One of the best and funniest Doctor Who podcasts.
If we ever make a Douglas Adams podcast, we can title it Mostly Accurate. As a play on words for Mostly Harmless, which is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy entry on Earth. Like the entry on Earth, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
Anyway, back to the plot at hand, which, if you haven't guessed by now, while being somewhat entertaining, was actually rather thin.
Yeah, it's a little sparse. I thought this was a good story. I enjoyed it.
I found the fact that the plot was sparse to work vastly against this episode. This would have been great as a 25 to 30 minute episode. And the reason why I say that is because exactly with 12 minutes to left, they actually make it to the alien spaceship.
Yeah, I mean, once they hit the spaceship, it's all really interesting from there. There's all this stuff with Avery's son and his sort of backstory that's just yeah, did you really need all of this? I mean, you had to pad it out, but...
Which happens right now, by the way. Perfect segue back into the plot, but they go to the gunpowder storage because it's the driest place on the ship.
Right, and the Doctor has theorized that the Siren can materialize through water.
Yes.
Which is wrong. I kind of liked how in this story all the Doctor's little deductions turned out to be wrong, kind of poking fun at... I mean,
that one wasn't entirely wrong. It was...
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, but you know what I mean. You know how he's ignore everything I just said.
That deduction was actually interesting because it was right given the limited data set that they have, but in the grander scheme was actually only a piece of the entire puzzle, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I mean... As he learns more, I guess, or observes more, But I thought it was just funny as sort of this moment that pokes fun at earlier times when the Doctor would be here's what's going on, and you're all right, sure, and then he's right, but
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's a nice little microcosm of how science works, is that you make a small deduction that then is either proven to be false or true when you get a larger data set.
Empirical science, let's call it that.
empirical science, or the science that I'm in anyway, physics, you make a deduction or a theory, and then it's either proven to be wrong or slightly incorrect or needs to be expanded or whatever when you get a larger data set or a different data set and so on. So I thought that was kind of cool, actually, that the Doctor is kind of working through this in the way that realistically is actually how someone would work through this. He makes deductions that really aren't that far out there. So anyway,
they get to his son is stowed away in the room that had a name.
Gunpowder storage room.
Yeah,
the store.
Which they keep a lit flame in that's unattended.
Yeah, that was a questionable thing. Another questionable thing was when the boy goes to drink some water out of the barrel and then gets immediately attacked by the siren, which calls into question how he survived like the 3 months in the store there without being attacked.
No, it was only like 11 days. They said that,
okay, 11 days.
Like 11
Same
days
thing. How did he go to drink from that water barrel every single time and only just get attacked now? I don't know.
Maybe the siren wasn't on the lookout.
But it pops out and spooks him. And then the Doctor realizes that the siren's not just going for people who are bleeding, but also for people who are just generally sick or injured in some way. Because the kid has, it's turned out, typhoid fever. And the crew is not immediately concerned about the spreadability risk here.
Now I got to deal with that siren first. Pesky siren, always getting in the way.
But they don't seem to be concerned about that spread later on, which I guess is because they're on a hyper-advanced spaceship. They can't actually cure them, apparently, but can keep them alive.
Yeah, so if they get it, they know they can just live out the rest of their days as vegetables.
Well, that boy seems to be not a vegetable.
He's fine. Anyway, the crew is sort of taken aback. The captain has gone soft. Avery, that is. Because his son is there, and the son doesn't realize. I didn't get this until the next scene with the son, but the son doesn't realize that he's on a pirate ship.
Yeah, because he talks about how his mom, Avery's, I guess now former wife, since she is revealed to have died while Avery was gone,
right,
told all these stories about how Avery was apparently a naval officer who conquered people,
did cool stuff,
did cool things, and was a hero. Or something.
Cool, Toby was his name, at least. But he doesn't realize, like, what he's gotten himself into.
Well, the Doctor mentions...
I didn't know that he didn't realize that until they were...
Oh, until the next scene?
Until he's like, what about your honor and your sworn duty? And they just, like, laugh at him.
And they're like, we fly under the black flag, right? He's like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, we're pirates, dude.
Pirates, bro. Brah.
We're Jersey Shore pirates, dude. But the Doctor is like, yo, my ship can get us all out of here, my TARDIS. Avery goes inside, which I guess technically makes him by a companion by that measure that we started way back at the start of the show. We
started this? Wasn't it just one of the many?
It was just one of the many that we agreed with, I guess, at the time, that if you travel in the TARDIS, you're a companion, although Avery doesn't really go anywhere. The other big question at the end of the story is, how did the Doctor get his TARDIS back? But anyway.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't think they actually tell us.
Back up.
I think it just pops back in.
It's probably related to stuff that's going to happen later on in the season. I'm guessing. I'm trying
to think. I don't remember this season very well. It may or may not be related to next week. I'll say that.
I think this now is when because Amy, Rory, and Toby
they're sleeping.
Are sleeping, and one of the guys actually makes off with some guns.
I don't know where he's going to go because Avery reveals that there's been no wind for 11 days.
Yeah, they're in the doldrums somewhat.
So,
and then there's sort of a chase. The Doctor and Avery kind of chase him, and he eventually gets killed by the siren.
Yeah, there's actually a character who completely vanishes, and I kind of sort of noticed this when I was watching.
I didn't notice it until
I didn't pick up on it like totally. I just thought that like the number of characters that I'd miscounted the number of characters earlier, but apparently due to some cuts in after filming, I think One of the characters dies off screen and just vanishes from the crew because a whole subplot with him trying to cut himself free from the rigging or the bow of the ship got cut. And, in the process of that, he was going to cut himself and get taken by the Siren, but all that got cut. So he's in one scene, and then like 3 scenes later, he's just gone. So
and then shows back up in the spaceship hospital.
Spaceship at the end, which is fine because there's a whole bunch of other pirates in the hospital at the end that we didn't see before because they've been being killed off for a couple of days. So
right.
But the TARDIS
so this is
throws
when the
a
doctor,
fit.
Yeah, this is when the Doctor realizes that the Siren is coming out of reflective material.
Yeah.
The TARDIS has already disappeared at this point.
Yeah, because he sees the crown. Because he can't figure out how the Siren got into the room where there was no water. And then he sees the crown and the reflective surface in the crown. And he realizes that water is reflective. And still water is reflective because he realizes that the Siren didn't jump out of the water inside the ship because they were all crashing around in it. So the water wasn't still, but the drinking water was still, which is where the Siren popped out of.
Right.
So he tells Avery they got to chuck all the gold overboard.
Right. And there's this tense scene where they have to get back to where Amy, Rory, and the kid are because he has like a medallion with the Siren on it. He
stole a medallion off Avery's neck, I think was the thing. And Avery kind of grabs at his neck and realizes it's gone, and that's why they rush to Amy and Rory.
And I think this is the point where Amy sees the woman again, the woman with an eye patch.
Yeah.
Who sort of, I guess, has this mini peephole to anywhere.
Well, it makes sense when you realize what happens.
Damn.
What do you mean, damn?
So they get back to that room.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they start chucking all the gold overboard. And Avery's like, no, my treasure.
The Doctor's like, treasure or death, take your pick. He's like, death. No.
And kind of. He saves the crown.
Well, yeah, so that's the thing is that suddenly a storm pops up and they're like, yes, we can get out of here.
Why don't you they should have just put the crown in a bag like they had it, and the Siren would come out of the crown and be in a bag, and they can trap the Siren.
I was like, couldn't the Siren go through things?
Yeah, the Siren can just materialize through stuff.
So the storm's raging and Avery's yelling stereotypical pirate things that, like, I don't know if they actually use those in pirate times, but, makes for a cool story, so whatever. Yeah,
it's kind of funny because the Doctor smashes all the windows because they're reflective, and then as soon as that happens, the storm starts. It's like, oh, all right.
And the Doctor's trying to steer the ship, and Amy and Rory are working on the sails, and Toby comes out with a bag, and Avery's doing the rigging, and Toby falls, and the bag falls out, and the crown falls out. And the Siren pops out, and she's like, what's up? I'm taking Toby now. And Avery's like, damn. And the Doctor chastises him because he's like, what? That's why you gave up your commission for the crown, isn't it? For the gold. You couldn't let go of the gold, could you, Avery? Avery kind of doesn't respond.
Yeah. So, Doctor, all this is like pretty... it's not inconsequential. It's like, it's just kind of there. Right, mm-hmm. This story between Avery and his son, didn't really hit home.
It's character development.
I don't know. It's just like a character for these characters.
Yeah,
but I didn't really care.
They tried to make you care by giving Toby an incurable disease.
Yeah, I didn't care.
And then the Doctor decides, because Rory gets taken too, the Doctor decides that the best way to go is a Suicide Pact.
Right. So they all decide to, because they don't know for sure that the people getting zapped by the Siren die.
They don't know for sure that they're not either.
Yeah, so they're like, well, it's our only chance now, and Rory's dead again. So, here we go. So they all cut themselves and get zapped.
Well, the Doctor pricks their fingers, and I made a note of this, that Matt Smith does a really poor job of selling this because I think he pretty much completely misses Karen Gillan's hand. Go back and rewatch it. It's pretty obvious.
Whatever, though. Like, it's not a big deal. And it's not
but it was funny.
It's not a close-up on their hands either. It's sort of...
But it was funny.
Sort of far away, like a middle shot.
A middle shot?
Yeah. It's a term.
It was funny,
mid-shot,
though.
whatever the term is, medium shot. It's a term. Look it up.
And I don't doubt that it is. I don't know what it is personally. So
Yeah, me neither. It's one of those things. They wind up on the spaceship.
Yeah, and the Doctor mentions that it's like, oh, two things occupying the same space at the same time.
Just off.
Which the wiki's like, this happened once before in the Stones of Blood. And I was like, oh yeah, good point.
Yeah, I knew this had happened before. I think it's happened more than once before, to be honest. But
well, because it's a really easy way to put an alien spaceship somewhere without like having to do visuals for the outside of the spaceship.
Sure.
Out of universe.
I really liked what they did with the aliens, though. I mean, they're just skeletons, but they look really cool.
Yeah, they find these like dead pilots, I guess, and the Doctor mentions that they caught a human disease,
right? Which
is interesting when you think about it. When you relate it to the fact that pirates are in the story, because if you remember, like a lot of early explorers took European diseases over to the Americas.
I mean, they say 90% of the Native American population of the United States died to European diseases. 90%. Like, that's the statistic that's out there right now.
Yep. I just finished reading a book called The Lost City of Z, which was made into a movie, but it was about this explorer, Percy Fawcett, who heard all these stories about this civilization in the Amazon, and he went looking for it and eventually disappeared. But the author basically follows Percy's notes and meets up with like modern archaeologists in the area and basically theorizes that this civilization actually did exist, but by the time Fawcett made it there, the European diseases had taken hold, and most of the people or the natives that had lived in those big cities that Fawcett was looking for in Z had died out because the disease had just so rapidly basically killed everybody off. That Percy Fawcett was actually right in that there was a civilization there, but that by the time he actually went looking for it, it was too late because it had been wiped out by European explorers. So it's interesting then that the story like has these two aliens in the spaceship who land and they get killed basically by a human disease. That infects them and kills them. Almost an inversion, you know. In this case, it was the aliens coming to Earth and getting killed by diseases on Earth, rather than, I guess the direct analog would be aliens coming to Earth and then people on Earth dying because of this alien parasite that gets brought with them, which I'm surprised Doctor Who hasn't done that yet. That would be...
Yeah, that seems like a right up Doctor Who's alley, you know?
Yeah, it really does.
But this is interesting. I mean, now that you bring it up, it's interesting. You gotta wonder how history would have been different if, like, Europeans came to the Americas and then just died from American diseases. You know?
I mean, the entire history book would be different, for sure. A lot of those explorers probably wouldn't make it back to even tell their findings, so... I mean, there were so many different ways that it could have gone. And... it's interesting, actually, now that you bring that up, that you never hear of any Europeans dying from American diseases. I mean, I'm sure there were a few, but never in the numbers that it was in reverse.
I mean, I don't know if there were. I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, neither have I, but I'm sure that there was like at least a few that probably weren't recorded. I mean, I'm just theorizing like...
Sure. I mean, are there any like diseases that people are susceptible to that were in the Americas, but like Europeans hadn't known about or were never exposed to?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Of any of them.
I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that would be something interesting to look up.
Anyway, back to the story at hand. They're like walking around the spaceship and they find all the people like in this room, and
looks really cool.
I'm surprised the Doctor takes so long to figure out that this is an infirmary, because he doesn't realize it when they get in there first, and they like... The Siren shows up. I
didn't realize what was going on either till the Doctor said it.
Siren shows up and tries to attack him, but then the Doctor's like, no, wait, it's an infirmary. She's not killing them, she's trying to heal them. Then he makes some nonsense explanation for why the Siren looks human, which wasn't really necessary.
She's a virtual doctor. I mean, I thought it was cool. She's a virtual doctor that takes on the appearance of whoever she's treating.
I guess. It was just one of those things that I thought was like, if they didn't mention it, you would never have questioned it.
I mean, they didn't, I agree, but I didn't think it detracted from the story that they put it in.
Yeah. The actress who plays the Siren is a former model. Fun fact. This is one of her first forays into acting.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't do much acting. Well, I guess she did. I guess what the Siren did in this was acting, yeah. It is, you know.
Anyway,
but they're not allowed to touch any of the patients. And Rory's in there, you know, they're all in there, so none of them are dead.
Yeah, we forgot to actually mention how Rory got in there and that he falls overboard and he's drowning. And the doctor's like, well, we'll just send the Siren after him because at least that way he can have a quick death. And so he's in the infirmary too, and they reveal that, or the doctor figures out that they can release the people to, you know, next of kin or not next of kin. That's not the word I'm looking for. Like familiar relations or like a designated kind of.
It's the same kind of thing that you have to go, like the hoops you'd have to jump through at a hospital here. You know, show you're related to the person somehow and sign the contract, and you can go do whatever you want with them. You can just take them off life support or whatever. I guess you can, technically.
Do whatever you want with them?
Make medical decisions for them.
I was say it's not like you can eat them. Cannibalism's still illegal in all 50 states, last I heard. Even with the person's consent. Not that can you really consent to being eaten?
Yeah, you can. You can. If someone asks
not according
you,
to the law.
I eat you? You say yes.
Well, the instant they start eating you, that's illegal, even if you said yes.
Sure, I mean...
By the way, I'm not saying cannibalism should be legal. That's not what I'm trying to say here. Just in case anybody...
But we're not saying that it should be illegal. We haven't said that.
I don't agree with that.
We haven't said that.
We haven't said it, but I don't agree that that's not what we're saying. Anyway, they take him off the life support. He immediately starts dying because he was drowning, and they put him back on. They're like, oh, shoot. And Rory's like, I can teach you how to save me. I'm a nurse.
Yeah, so this is a little weird. So as soon as they take him off, it's as if he's drowning again. So even though he's not in the water, I guess he's experiencing what he would be experiencing if he wasn't zapped into the other dimension.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that's how it works.
Yeah, I was just thinking about another episode that I think is a season, actually. The Girl Who Waited, that had a kind of a similar concept.
Is Amy the girl who waited?
I'm not going to say anything. Why would I tell you? And so Rory tells Amy how to do the resuscitation thing, and then I guess the TARDIS is just
CPR
back because they...
Oh, right, the TARDIS was in the sick bay because it got like zapped somehow, I guess.
Yeah. It was
I guess like the TARDIS wasn't working, so the Siren was like, "Hey, it's in disrepair."
Well, the TARDIS dematerialized, but there was like a teleportation effect around it. I think the TARDIS was messed up by the fact that there was like two different things in the same place at the same time.
Well, when Avery and the Doctor went in there, it wasn't working.
It was doing all sorts of weird things. Yeah, Avery immediately figures out like where all the directions and everything are, and the Doctor's like, "Wow, I'm impressed." And he's like, "A ship's a ship." Anyway, the Doctor reveals to Avery that typhoid fever hasn't been cured in England in this time period, so if he goes back, he's dooming his son to death. Avery's like, well, what if I stay here then? And the Doctor's like, sure. I'm surprised the Doctor's just okay with putting this ragtag pirate crew on this highly advanced alien spaceship and just shooting them off into space.
What could possibly go wrong?
A lot of things, actually. There are a lot of things that could go wrong with this. Not to mention that, like, even with the most virtuous of people, just shoving them on an alien spaceship 3,000 years technologically ahead of where they are is, like, a bad idea. And these are pirates, so...
They could fly into the sun. You know, you never know. And that would be the end of that.
Yeah, can you imagine that final shot of them where they all walk onto the bridge and look out into space with just them flying headfirst into the sun?
Anyway, they get back on the TARDIS and Amy has to give Rory CPR.
Right. And he's dying, but then they do the dramatic TV thing where they're like, no, he's gone. Just stop now, Amy. And she's like, okay, I guess we'll have to let him go. And then he starts coughing immediately.
But it's funnier than that because she does it for like 2 seconds and then she's like, no, I knew I wouldn't be able to save him. She like gives up so quickly.
Yeah, which is also funny because Rory's like, I'm going to teach you how to do it because I know you'll never give up on me. Amy's like, what?
But he's fine. Rory's fine.
Still a little bit of sunk cost going on here with Rory. No reason I couldn't tell a doctor what to do here. No reason why the doctor didn't know what to do.
There's actually that line also where Amy's like, why am I the one who has to do the CPR? And Rory's just like, he doesn't say this, but you get the idea. It's like, no, I don't want to go, mouth to mouth to the doctor. But no, Rory. I thought Rory might die again here. They've done it once.
Consequences can be rewritten if you do it well. Consequences can happen the same way again.
They can be rewritten and then
written again.
Rewritten. You just had like a press release announcement video at the end where Stephen Moffat comes on. He's like, you know what, guys? I apologize. We messed up. Rory never should have been brought back. And this is our way of reconciling everything. No, he sort of walks it off.
Yeah,
walks around
he literally just walks it off.
Yeah, walks around with an open bathrobe for the rest of the story.
It's just being stylish and comfortable at the same time.
But then this is the other scene where we get reference to the doctor's death. Amy sort of flashes back for her and forward for the doctor.
To his death.
And Rory's like, no, we can never tell him.
The doctor then reveals that he's still scanning Amy to see if she's pregnant. It's still coming up questions. And then the doctor says something like, oh, Amy, what's going on? And then it ends.
Yep.
Then we get a next time trailer.
It reveals the Ood.
Yeah. But actually reveals surprisingly absolutely nothing about the plot, which I thought was really good. It's one of the better next time trailers that we've had in a long time.
Yeah, so next week's written by Neil Gaiman, which means...
Or Neil Gaiman, I heard, actually, some people pronounce it like that. So now I actually don't know what the correct way to pronounce it is.
I'll just look up a video of him saying his own name.
Yeah, that's probably a good plan.
Just tweet at him because he replies to like every single tweet he gets, almost.
Hey, Neil, how do you say your name? Hey, Neil, do you want to be on the podcast? We actually already have a guest for next week, by the way. We're planning to do it with RG.
Neil Gaiman? No.
Yeah, with Neil Gaiman. With RG, who is a correspondent on Zenith, our Blake 7 podcast. Check that out. And who's been on that show before. She will be joining us. And we'll be on it again. Yes, she will be. And she will be also joining us next week for The Doctor's Wife. Anyway, I actually didn't have a lot else to talk about for this episode. Because, like I said, the plot was remarkably thin, which was fine. I thought this episode would have been great if it was 30 minutes, just because it would have felt a little quicker paced. Because the thing for me about this episode, and this is kind of the last thing I want to say on this, is that to me it felt like all the plot elements we got were really good and exciting, but then there was like all the space between them that was like just dead air almost. The Doctor finds out something about the Siren, and then we all go into the gunpowder storage and we sit and talk for the next 2 minutes. And the Doctor and Avery go to the TARDIS, and then they stand in the TARDIS and talk for 2 minutes. Then they leave the TARDIS and they talk for 2 minutes.
Standing around and talking can be good. I mean, it wasn't here, but,
And then they go to Amy and Rory and they get the pendant, and then they talk for 2 minutes. And then they get to the alien spaceship and they talk for 2 minutes. I think you catch my drift.
And then people watch the episode and record a podcast where they talk.
For 45 minutes. And yeah, I just think they needed to cut some of that dead air, and this would have been great. Otherwise, as it stands, it was all right.
Yeah, I didn't have anything else for this one.
Yeah, neither did I. But if you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, arguments, love letters, your thoughts on pirates. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show. And if you're curious, because I know some of you probably found this show and were like, hey man, that woman doctor, that's cool. What's this Doctor Who podcast about? If you really want to know when we're going to talk about that, I actually calculated it. Our episode on the woman who fell to Earth will go out the weekend, I think, December 15th, 2019.
Oh boy.
So, there you go. That's my bit done.
Check us on Facebook, like Trust Your Doctor, like us on Facebook. Also check us on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time, like we mentioned, we'll be watching The Doctor's Wife with Argy. But until then, the end.